Okay. And before we jump into asking Jess some questions, I'd like to offer a brief prayer for our time together and our time moving forward. So if y'all would join me in an attitude of prayer. God, we are always grateful for the opportunity to meet like this, as strange as it continues to feel. But we know that you are in our midst. We are grateful that you've brought Jess to us, brought Jess to Wesley, and brought each of these wonderful folks to the Wesley community. We pray that as we get to know each other, we're setting ourselves up to grow well together, to grow closer to you, and to strengthen ourselves for the continued weird times that we continue to be in. God, just bless our time together. And it's in your Son's precious and holy name that we pray. Amen. So I'll start it off by asking Jess a question. I've got a few in my mind, but if something he says strikes a question in, like, for you, go ahead and throw it out there. This is very chill. We want it to be helpful for y'all. And if you don't want to like say the question, feel free to put it in the chat box. All is fair game. But Jess, what is your favorite birthday memory?
Okay, favorite birthday memory. So my birthday's in June 13th. And so the funny thing about my birthday is most of my life, I was not with my family on my birthday because I played like football and baseball. And so like stay away football camps were always the week of my birthday. And now as a United Methodist like church pastor, and I've been doing this, annual conference is almost always the week of my birthday. And so I only have like 2 like actually on my birthday parties, and they were both like really awesome. But one was when I was 5, and a magician made me float in front of a park with all of the members of my t-ball team, and I didn't get to see it, but it was like incredible. And so I like heard everyone freak out, and it made me super excited. And for some reason, like that memory sticks in my head of like that was the greatest birthday thing ever. So I'm gonna have to go with when I was 5 and getting floated by a magician.
That's awesome. Molly put in the chat box, didn't you play football for the Gators, Jess?
That is 100% true. I cannot deny it. I played football for the University of Florida, 2008, 2009. Going into the 2010 season is when I found out that I had to have a pretty massive ankle surgery, which ended up putting me in a wheelchair for a year. And so that's kind of how my football career ended. And it's a big part of my overall testimony of kind of how I came to God and into this whole story. But I did. So one of the things people always talk about is that I played football with Tim Tebow, won a national championship with them in 2008. So I was actually down here in Miami for the Orange Bowl, where the Gators were ranked number 2, played Oklahoma, and ended up winning it all, and had all the, the crazy stereotypical, like, 5-star restaurant or 5-star hotel on Miami Beach party, like afterwards. And like, everyone's like, you're the coolest thing ever. It's like all that like really weird, like you only see it on television kind of experience. But yeah, so most people find that out. And I love the question because everyone goes, do you know Tim Tebow? And I always go, yeah, like I even got to shower with him sometimes. Like it always throws people off because you on the football team, you'd always like shower after practice, but nothing like weird, guys. Keep in mind.
Yeah.
Oh, get another chat.
You guys were awfully close.
Yeah, well, we all smell horrible, so I gotta change allegiances now. That's true. So a funny story about that. My pastor back like in Melbourne, he went to the University of Miami, graduated from Frost School of Music, and like went to Wesley back in the day. And that's part of where he like really like affirmed his calling into the ministry. And so he was always a huge Miami fan. I'm a huge Gator fan. Like we'd always like mess each other and talk about it. And then the day that I don't have it in here, but the day that like we found out that I was coming here, he gave me like his like University of Miami hat and told me I never want to see you in Gator stuff again. So I have my Miami stuff. I'm getting some FIU stuff. I'm working on it. It's hard, in my heart, it's hard, but I'm being converted by the love of Jesus, I think.
I just got my dad a turnover chain for Father's Day.
Now, see, that's actually pretty cool though. That's like I would totally rock one of those around town. Let's put it that way.
He was pretty excited.
So, Jess, what's your favorite Bible story?
Oh man. Favorite Bible story. See, it's funny because like normally people talk about like favorite Bible verses, and it's like narrows off. I think favorite Bible stories. I have two that I'm going to say. One because I think it's hilarious and it's like important, and then one because it's like a really important story to me. And so the important story to me is Jesus's baptism in the story of Gospel of John. And if you guys hear me preach, you'll probably hear me note this at some point later on in life. But it always hit me because when I spent a year in a wheelchair, I was like really wrestling with identity. Like, who am I? Am I worth anything if I can't be super successful? Like, I'm no longer an athlete. I'm no longer a star. Like, I can't even like get through my front door without my parents' help. And so dealing with that, sitting in a wheelchair, reading through my Bible, like I decided to do all these things. And I read the story of Jesus at his baptism. And it says that like the heavens open up and the voice from heaven says like, this is my son with whom I'm well pleased. And I look at the story and it's like, nothing, Jesus hasn't done anything up that point. He's done no miracles. He hasn't like done anything. Like we don't even know like about his childhood. And it was this weird thing of if God can say that Jesus, like he's well pleased with Jesus before Jesus does any of the crazy, awesome things that like most people like follow Jesus for, like what does that mean about us? Because then Jesus says like, you too are children of God. And so like, does God really love me even if I can't do all the things that I think I need to be able to do, or if I can't succeed in the way that I'm supposed to succeed, or the world doesn't see me as successful? And so like that story really sparked like for me, like the Holy Spirit transforming my heart into realizing like my identity isn't in what I can do or what I've accomplished or how great I am at all these things. Like no matter how many accolades I have, it's because of like the fact that God created me and loves me and calls me his son. And so that was like a huge change in my life that's like really been freeing in almost like every aspect of me. Like if you know the Enneagram, I'm a 3. And so like success oriented, like everything, like that's where I've always found identity. And so it's a slow process. It's not easy, but it's something that I'm constantly reminded of. And so that story is like really pivotal to me in my heart. And then the funny story is I learned in Genesis. So I did a year of Hebrew, biblical Hebrew. And then I did a semester of like going through Genesis in Hebrew. And one of the stories in there I think is great is about Isaac and Rachel. And, you know, we read the English Bible and it's like, we like to romanticize everything, but sometimes Hebrew is like just really funny because it's like trying to make a joke, or it's, you know, supposed to be like a really engaging story. And it says that like when Rachel is coming to, and she sees Isaac in the field, like she sees Isaac and she falls, like she faints off of the mule, and everyone's like, oh, like Isaac was so beautiful or whatever, like she was like so like, you know, entrapped by him. But when you read it in Hebrew, like it's really funny because it says Isaac is in the field, and the word there is never used anywhere else in the Bible, but it's only like one little line away from being the word for taking a poop. And so it's like Isaac is in the field going to like maybe use the bathroom, and then Rachel sees and goes, who is that? And the guy's like, oh, that's your future husband. And then she falls. And so I like to think of that story, and my Hebrew teacher taught it like it's actually a story of like Isaac is doing everything wrong because he didn't even go get his own wife. Like he sent someone to go do it instead of him doing it himself, which you're not supposed to do. And then he's taking a poop in the field, and all of a sudden Rachel's like, this is my life now, and this is terrifying. And so it really highlights like not how great the forefathers are, but actually how faithful God was even to people who can't do anything right. And so that's a story that I love to tell people all the time. I think we have a chat.
Yeah. Molly's a 1. I'm a 3.
Oh, there you go.
Do y'all, Patty loves the Enneagram. Do y'all 3, Gianna, Daniel, Patty, you know your numbers? Maybe.
I've never done that. What is this that you're talking about? Enneagram.
You want to explain it, Paige?
Nah, you got it.
So the Enneagram is actually, I mean, it's recently like kind of resurgence, but essentially it's a form of a personality test that's very ancient. And a lot of Christians have really jumped into it, and Richard Rohr and people have written books on it. But essentially it's a personality type where there are 9 different types, numbers 1 through 9, and each one kind of talks about who you are. But one of the key things that changes Enneagram, in my opinion, from other things is that it actually talks more about like what your shortcomings could be, more so than it talks about like, these are all your strengths and all your great parts. And it does do that. But like It talks about what your core fear might be, like what motivates you to do all the things that you do, positively or negatively. And then there's a lot of depth to it, because it talks about like what happens to you when you're in stress, what happens to you when you're doing well. And so like the 3 for me is the achiever, and it's someone who like their greatest like fear is that like they're not worthy, that they aren't loved because they can't do things. And so like motivation is to like be as successful as possible and get people to like you. And then the 1 I think is like the reformer, someone who's is constantly trying to be like perfect and wants to like do everything just right and those kinds of things. And so there's a bunch of different numbers, and I'm not in any way a expert on these things. But yeah, I enjoy the Enneagram.
That's cool. Do you like take it online or something?
Yeah, so you can go to just like search the Enneagram test, and you can find a bunch of different ones, but then you can go to the Enneagram Institute, and they actually have like links where you can read all about each number, and you can kind of feel which one fits you. There's a lot of different people who have different opinions on how you should go about it. Some people are like, never take a test. You should only read books and figure it out. Like Paige apparently is one of those. And I own 2 books on the Enneagram. If you ever want to like read up on it on yourself, you could totally borrow one and just kind of figure out for yourself what you might be. But that's what I did. I read through them, and I was like, I know which one I am. There you go.
Yeah,
that's cool. I think I'm gonna try it out. I would like to know, even though I have a feeling I'm a 1 because I'm like crazy, but
they're all good in their own ways, for sure. Yeah.
My question for you was, I don't really know like what you have to do when you're like doing a Master of Divinity or like anything in theology. But I was wondering, like, first of all, okay, this is probably a yes, but did you have to read the entire Bible? And second of all, like, how many times did you have to do it?
Okay. So the thing about getting your Master of Divinity is like there are people who do everything they're supposed to do, and there are people who don't do everything they're supposed to do. And
Like in every degree.
Like every degree. And so at Duke, at least, your first year, you take Old Testament 1 and first semester, and you take Old Testament 2 second semester, and you take all of New Testament second semester. And in those classes, you're assigned the entire Bible all the way through. So you are supposed to read the whole thing all the way through. The first time I ever read the Bible all the way through cover to cover was the year that I was in a wheelchair, because I didn't really have a whole lot of else to do. And I was like, if any of this is true, then like I really need to look into it. And so I've actually tried my best every year since then, and that was back in 2011, to read the Bible each year all the way through. And that's not something that most of my friends do, but it was something that like gave me life back then, and I've just kind of made it a habit, and now it's just something that I do in the mornings for myself. And so you're supposed to read it. I know a lot of people who haven't read the whole Bible all the way through, or who haven't read every part of it. But I encourage people to. I think it's like, if you enjoy challenges, it's a good challenge, but it's also something that like people think that like you just have to like do it, but like you can just read a chapter a week for like the rest of your life, and like you'll eventually read the whole Bible. So you are supposed to read it, but you actually have to do a lot of other reading. Like I showed Paige this, so I might as well just do this. Like, so this is my home office. So these are all commentaries and Bibles, and then those are all more commentaries and Bibles, and then those are books on different forms of like spirituality and faith and stuff. And then these are more books down there. Those are all seminary books. And then I have another one that's all books. So I had to do a lot of reading during my 3 years there. But it like anything, you can get through it just listening to lectures and like reading things just for papers. It really depends on kind of like what your preference is.
I could tell by your head page that you probably did not read the whole thing.
Well, I mean, we weren't required to in my program. We were required sections, but it wasn't, it was honestly like, I think that's one place where my professors at BU, I loved my education, but where they did us a disservice. So my school was a lot more focused on theology than biblical studies, whereas Jess, it sounds like there was a lot stronger of an emphasis on biblical studies at Duke than there was in Boston. So that was like, there are definitely some things I gained because of that, but there are also some things I lost. So, I mean, I have on my own read the Bible a couple times, through and through, but that wasn't something that was required for me in my program. which I think is honestly weird. But yeah, so it differs by school. All of them have these kind of different emphases. Like some of them will really strongly focus on how do you put faith into action. Some focus a lot on teaching people to become pastors. Some focus a lot on the academic study of theology. It's all different and they all have their own strengths and weaknesses. But I think it's exciting because like Jess and I got very different educations. So the things that he's learned and the things that I've learned are going to be very different, because when you're studying a thing as ridiculous, our degree was called the Master of Divinity, which is the most ridiculous degree name ever, because like who honestly thinks they can master divinity, right?
Master of Divine.
Right, like that's bizarre. So yeah, there's just very different kind of focuses in different theology schools. So yeah.
And it just means that you and I work that much better because we have
exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a good question. And, I can always, if you want to hear horror stories of my life in divinity school, I'll happily tell you.
I just feel like that's a stereotype. Like anybody who would like think, oh yeah, you studied like religion or like chaplaincy or whatever in college. Oh, you must have read the Bible like a billion times. But now I know that it's not necessarily like that. It sounds like, you guys did it actually more for fun than like.
Right. And I will say, like, you will come across a lot of divinity. Like, if you meet a lot of people from divinity school, you'll probably come across a lot who haven't even done that. Like, I had some friends at divinity school who they wanted a master's in divinity, but they were looking to do more nonprofit work or other things, and they focused a lot more on other aspects, like theology aspects of social justice. And some of them would even tell me they haven't read all of the Old Testament. Like, they didn't bother to read Numbers or whatever it was. And that's the choices that they made. But for myself, like being a pastor and wanting to like live into that and like preach the Bible all the time, like it's something that I enjoy and it's something that I do, for myself. And so there definitely is a wide spectrum of people.
So what is your favorite book in the Bible?
Oh, what is my favorite book in the Bible? Man, that's a good question. I don't know if I've ever been asked that. I have a weird love of Genesis because I read the whole thing in Hebrew for one of my classes, and it's a book that the more you dive into it, there's more beauty, and it really like can change the way you view the entire Bible. The way that you read Genesis, I found, and the way that you interpret things about Genesis really change the way that you read the rest of the Bible. Like how literally you take certain things, how, are you focusing on who Abraham is, or are you focusing on who God is and the stories and the different ways? And so I love the Old Testament, and I love Genesis specifically because I feel like people read it, but like people don't really care about it that much. Like you don't hear it preached all that often. Like you hear like little parts and different quotes. But I do enjoy it. And then probably Philippians and Ephesians are the two like letters in the New Testament that like changed my life because they were always quoted. Like as an athlete, everyone's like, oh, Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And like they'd write it on their faces, like, cause like that means I'm going to win a football game and like all these different things. And so like actually reading through it and like reading how beautiful, like the way that Paul talks about who Jesus was and like how Jesus actually is like such a gift and how you can lean into that. Those things really shocked me. And that's actually what made me go, well, if this is true, then I really need to read all of this and figure this out. Because if this is actually true, what Paul is saying in Philippians, then I've missed something for like the first 20 something years of my life. And I want to like be sure about that. And so I have a weird affinity for Philippians and Ephesians because it helped me dive in and then read everything else and like the Gospels and all the things that like people normally talk about, like kind of came to life to me through that. But I think that's a great question.
I really like Genesis too, for all the reasons you mentioned. And it's interesting to explore all the aspects and why people did what they did and how it related to their faith in God.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do agree. Genesis is essentially a glorified soap opera page. That's a tweetable moment right there.
So much family drama in.
There's the reason why people still love watching soap operas.
Yep.
Like a lot of people make mistakes these days that were made back then too, and
right.
Like, maybe look at history and try to avoid certain mistakes.
Right. And that's one of the things that really like changes, Judaism and Christianity from a lot of, other religions, is how like we highlight how horrible some of the people in our faith have been and the horrible mistakes they made, and how it's not really about them. It's about who God is and how God was still faithful. And so that's one of the reasons why I think like stories like Genesis, like in Isaac being an idiot, like is really helpful for us to think about and be like, yeah, like even if I do everything wrong, God is still so faithful that God keeps God's promises to me, and God still continues to build God's kingdom. And like, that's where I at least find hope when I feel like I have messed up everything that's around me. So it helps me stay a little grounded that way.
So Jess, what called you to college ministry?
What called me to college ministry? That's a good question. So the funny thing, total transparency, is I was going through school at Duke, and I knew that I was going before the board of ordained ministry. I was going to like try to become a provisional elder and get my license as a local pastor and all these things. And I was like, I don't really want to get stuck in the middle of nowhere, Florida, like pastoring 35 people who like, like I was like, God, if that's what you want from me, like I'll do it. Like I have no control. And the funny thing was, like, I thought I would have like no say. Like my DS was just going to be like, hey, Jess, you're going here. And I'm like, congratulations, that's God's will for you. And so I was like, I'd been praying for months that like about that. And like, all right, God, wherever I'm going, like that's going to be it. And I'm going to be okay with it. And I'll find contentment and I'll find joy. And I was like really preparing myself for that. And then I get a phone call, and my DS is like, hey, like I have a bunch of options. Like I want you to think about them and like talk to the pastors and talk to people. And I was like, what? Like that is not what I expected. And so I talked to Cynthia. I actually came down to campus. Me and my pastor who went to UM, we drove down and like met Cynthia and went to the campus and looked at the places and like really started thinking about it. And that was, well, I think my first conversation was like in February, and then I visited in March, like right when everything shut down. So like I came like when no one was on campus, and really started praying about it. And I started talking to a bunch of different campus ministers that I knew, because I had done youth ministry for 6.5 years before I went to Duke. I was going to school at night, and I was like, after I got in the wheelchair, I was working at Chick-fil-A, going back to school, figuring out what I wanted to do. And then the youth pastors at my church quit. And my pastor was like talking to me about my call, and I felt called to ministry. He was like, hey, how would you like to be a youth pastor? And I was like, that sounds terrible, but I'll do it. And so I hopped into youth ministry knowing nothing at like 20 years old. And I dove into it and fell in love with the kids and like growing them. And like, they're still really close to me. And like, they'll message me and post on my social medias, because, it really was a bonding experience. And like just being there with them and going through life and learning about Jesus and trying to be there for them was so enriching to me. And it turned out to be a very successful time for all of us and for my church. And so my DS knew of my youth group and had students from her church that actually went to my church for youth group because they liked it. And so when I was going through it all, she asked me, hey, have you ever considered college ministry? I was like, honestly, like I didn't even realize that was like an appointed position. I didn't even know that was like a possibility. And so when they talked to me about the UM position, I started praying about it, started talking to people, and everything just really seemed right. I was like, this is going to be an opportunity for me to be with younger people and like really get to like dive into intentional living and be in a place that like I never expected. And there's just so many positives about college ministry compared to church ministry. Like I don't have to deal with the same kind of boards. I get to stay up late and go to like do fun things and like do all this kind of stuff. But I also get to have like really serious conversations with people who are still trying to figure out what they know and what they believe and what they think, instead of going to a place and having to appease people who think they already know everything. And so all those made me like really excited about it. And then it just turned out like through prayer that like Cynthia and the board like really felt like this was a place that my strengths and like my gifts were going to really be helpful. And so it just kind of fell into place that way. So, it wasn't something that I'd ever even considered, partially because I never knew it was an option until they told me. And so that was kind of one of the things that I was just really excited about, as honest as I can be to you.
Do you have any favorite worship music?
Oh my goodness gracious. Yes. So I am like, I told Paige this. I'm probably too charismatic like for the Methodist church normally, because I'm like, I love singing and I can't like I want to get voice lessons because like I'm just like I'll dance around. I'm loud. I don't care. Like I have zero shame. Like people are like, you look crazy. I'm like, who cares? Like, and so I love worship. Like I play worship music in my house and like, for me, like right now, the Upper Room's new album I really love. The song "History" is great. Sing with the band. Maybe we'll figure it out. and so like right now, my theme song for like this year and from last year actually is Cody Carnes' "Nothing Else," which is a song that like I literally play it every morning. It's the first thing I listen to when I wake up. I wake up and I put it on, and it's basically the whole song is just like all I need is you, Jesus. Like no matter what you give me, like I just want to focus on you. And that's kind of been my theme. And so worship is like a big part of my day because it helps me like not be so pissed off or like if my back is hurting or whatever. It's like I wake up, I can set my mind right, I can listen to worship, I do my quiet time, and no matter what happens that day, like I can handle it. And so yeah, I love contemporary worship. I do have a whole playlist of just hymns. I love when people take hymns and they set them to like contemporary beats or backgrounds, bands, instruments, especially like when you add in violins and orchestras. And like, I think that's really beautiful because I love the lyrics of hymns. But I am definitely like a person who just loves to like jump around and like get excited about praise and worship. And, you know, you'll see, like you'll have to give me some grace as I like, you know, sing loudly off key or fall on my knees or something. But
is your playlist shareable? Is it like on Spotify or something?
Yeah. So I have and so I have all my stuff is, I was like earlier, like I don't block anything. So like all of my stuff is shareable. So I can easily send out like my hymns playlist or the other one. I have a playlist. I literally just call it Everyday Ride. And it's just like nothing but Christian songs, but like you'll be going from like a hymn. It's like beautiful, like how great how thou art. And then the next song is like Lecrae rapping about like American inequality for like on Jesus's perspective. So it's a little bit crazy, but I love it because I'm also a huge fan of rap music. So Christian rap has like been something that I've like, I have a hard time with the phrase Christian anything because like what makes something Christian? Like if a Christian person makes it, and then that makes it Christian in a way, but it's also like, it's just music. And so like, is it worship or is it like just music made by a Christian? And so like, there's like an argument to be had there. But I love music that gives me a positive emotion. So things that help me focus on like things that are beneficial and good, whether they're things that need to be addressed, inequalities that need to be focused on, or things that are helping me. But like, I try to stay away from stuff that's going to make me feel like I want to punch a wall. Like when I was back playing football and trying to get hyped for sports and stuff. Oh, so many chats. I need to learn how to like click this thing.
Yeah. It's all Molly.
Hey, wow. Call it out. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's good.
Hey, dude, I'll tell you, Post Malone, Post Malone pops up on my playlist every once in a while. And I'm just like, that's exactly what I need. Like, I just feel emo right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's good. And I'll only sing with the band if I get help on how to sing.
So you're offering to like trade your leadership skills for some voice lessons, basically.
Yeah, sure.
Your worship leadership skills.
Anytime.
Other questions y'all have for Jess?
And Molly's mom can ask anything too.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, what's something that you really want to like bring to Wesley at UM, or like maybe like, I don't know, just like any new ideas that you have. It could be like in terms of like the weekly lessons, or like maybe for bonding, or I don't know, places to bring to get food. It could be anything.
I love that. No, that's an amazing question. So yeah, so I'm a big proponent of like, I spend a lot of time like in prayer and in worship. And so I'm a really big proponent of the fact that the Holy Spirit is like a living part of God, like living God fully, like not part. I don't know why I said that. Don't kill me for heresy, but like the Holy Spirit is alive and is working. And our job as Christians is to take time to figure out where God is at move. And so like for me so far, I've been like hanging out with Paige and Alita and being in the building, like what is God already trying to do here at Wesley? And how can we partner with that and like really make that come alive? And that's been such a beautiful time for me right now. I don't know if I'm allowed to like reveal any of these things, but like we're talking about really like taking ownership of the space at I want to really change like the big room and make it not so cluttered and like a beautiful worship space, and doing things with lighting and with sound to make it so that like we can actually film lessons if we have to do stuff online, or do things so that like people who want to use it for their senior recital, like this can be like one of the best places that you could have your senior showcase. Taking some of those kinds of things, really taking ownership of the fact that theologically what your space is like represents like how you care about the people. Like people coming into worship here, like we want them to experience God. And so to answer your question, the call that I felt for a long time, and I've kind of written out, like the vision statement for my life has kind of always been that I want to create an imperfect place for imperfect people to experience the perfect love of God and embody it to the world. And so acknowledging that we are imperfect, but that there is a perfect love that God is trying to bring to us in experience in relationship, creating moments for us to experience that, to join in with that, so that we can truly be the hands and feet of Jesus to the people around us, whether that's, taking care of our neighbors, whether that's helping our fellow students who are struggling in this time, whatever that looks like, but joining together to do that. And so I'm really excited about the ideas of how do we create, more connections for each one of us together, but also how do we connect to God and the Holy Spirit in the places that we already are. And there's all kinds of ways to do that. Like, I have this really beautiful house and I'm a single person who lives alone. So like having like events at my house or people coming over, like cooking, I love cooking. And I literally spent the last like 28 hours slow cooking a pulled pork in my crock pot, just because I was like, there's no one else here, I might as well do it to myself, and I'm gonna party all my lonesome. And so like just the idea of having all you guys like back in the area and doing some fun things, taking time to really like care for one another. I'm a big proponent of that. I have always lived in like intentional communities. When I was at Duke, I lived with people with mental messing up my words, with intellectual or developmental disabilities. So like my roommate had Down syndrome, it was on the spectrum. And that 100 people community, there was 32 of us who had some form of intellectual or developmental disabilities, and we lived life together. And part of that is just like actually caring and be like, hey, like, how is it with your soul today? Like, what's going on? How can I be there for you? How can I empower you? And even Paige, Alita, and I, we have a staff meeting every week. And one of the last questions I put on there is like, how can the rest of us empower you to do the things that you feel called to do this week? And that's something that I really want to bring to the table. How can I be there as a resource for you to see what God is doing, to see your worth, your value, and how you can live into that, to truly find like what God is doing in and through you for the betterment of the people around you and the world around you. And so if we can figure out ways to do that, like, I think we're going to be in a really amazing place. But it's definitely going to be a journey, not an easy one.
Hi, Jess. Thanks for just all you had to say. Molly invited us to hear a little bit and to meet you.
Absolutely. So, love to have you.
I would love to hear a couple of things. I just told my husband I'm going to throw him under the bus, but he fits a lot of like broken drawers. He is the handyman. He fixed a lot of just broken drawers and stuff when Molly first moved in to her apartment last year, and he's really good at fixing things. So as you were talking about fixing up the large common room, and actually even talking to Cam this summer and seeing the beautiful mural that he and is it Alita's daughter painted, so gorgeous. Like fixing that whole garden area into a prayer garden or something. I don't know with COVID whether Molly will be coming down in the fall, but we will, if she is, we'll be driving down with her and we'll spend a few days there. So if there are any kind of things that you need fixed, any kind of projects, even when we fly down, if we fly down, we're up in Maryland, so it's a little hard, but just keep us in mind for helping out with
Hey, we're not going to reject any desires to help. I see that smile, Mr. Moore back there, really excited to dive in. I'm sure we'll have all kinds of fun projects we can work on. But yeah, no, for sure.
Big power tools. I love big power tools.
There we go. Yeah, I actually love building things and trying to work on stuff. I'm no way. I would not claim to be good at things, but like I love building. Like I built the headboard for my bedroom set, like for my first like queen size bed, because I slept on a twin mattress my entire life, and being 6'2" and 320 pounds, like that's a feat, I think. But so like I definitely am all about the power tools and things. We'll have some fun. And also Alita's husband, Ramon, I think he's a contractor, but he does construction things. And so we're excited to try to build out some stuff, make some different things. But absolutely, we appreciate that for sure. And we're praying and hoping that things work out, that Molly's able to come down, that you guys can come down too. That would be awesome to meet you.
Yeah. And then I just have one question just to talk. I know Molly's talked some about some of the changes with family time or how you're going to be doing that. But I think that's a wonderful thing that you guys do, just having that family time. Molly was wanting to kind of do, you said you love cooking. She loves, I don't know how much you did that last year, but getting together to cook together, but just some thoughts about the family time that you guys are planning. If you want to share that some.
No, awesome. Yeah. I mean, so we're going to be meeting with all the residents to talk about, we've interviewed everyone a little bit about what they want that family time to be. But it's definitely going to be, opportunities for us to figure things out. And, there's always chances for us to try to cook things together for sure. If Molly is down to try to make some meals in the kitchen different days of the week, we can definitely make that work.
She's learning.
Happily go in there and do that.
How to cook in the kitchen.
That's why like the kitchen in my house is like so huge, and like I'm like so excited because I'm like walking around and I have like a knife rack now and all these things I never had before, and like this is like adult life. I'm killing it. Like,
yeah, I wanted to. It didn't really happen last year, but like I don't know. It doesn't have to be super frequent, but like a Wesley resident like family dinner or something, like once a week or once every other week or something.
Well, hey, all you need is one person excited about it. We can make it happen. We can take that energy. We can work on it for sure. See who, even like I tell people all the time, like if you start something and like maybe the first 2 weeks, like it's just you and one other person, like eventually, like you be consistent, you do it faithfully, you have fun with it, like people will show up. Like people want to be a part of things that you enjoy. And so like if we're doing it, we're having fun, like we can definitely make that work. So I would encourage you that if that's something you want to do, let's do it. We'll have some fun. We'll get Paige to show up every once in a while and make some delicious food.
I'll bake bread. There you go.
You bake the bread.
And you gotta have football watching. Molly
you brought the turnover chain.
Molly got this for me.
That's right.
Thursday.
She told me, you have to wear it proudly, man. There you go. Those terrapins up there aren't gonna know what hit them when you walk around that thing.
No way, you.
No, I love it. This is a funny story. So I played football at the University of Florida, but growing up, my dad was a huge Hurricane fan. In my bedroom, and I kid you not, in my childhood bedroom, the walls were green and the ceiling fan was orange. And we took a pendant from the University of Miami to Lowe's and had them color match to make it the right green and orange. And so my childhood bedroom was Hurricane green and orange, was like Miami green and orange with like my football and baseball trophies all over the place. And like, that's where I slept in every day. Then they didn't want me to play football for them. It worked out.
Well, Dave is an Aggie, so for him to switch from maroon to green and gold or green and orange is pretty big. So.
Children will do that to you. My dad played for Syracuse, but he only wears Gator stuff nowadays.
All right, I'm going to slip out. It was really a pleasure meeting you.
Of course, anytime. Pleasure to meet you guys as well.
I hope the COVID crisis works out for you guys to get back in the fall. Yes. So,
amen. Absolutely.
Take care. See you.
Pleasure to meet you guys.
You too.
Oh, Daniel's hand.
Jess, what did you get your undergrad in?
What did I get my undergrad in?
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up graduating from the University of Central Florida online. I really care about the Knights, as you can tell. But I graduated with my undergrad in psychology. And I'm 2 classes away from having a full major in business as well. So I did basically I was a business major all the way through. I was almost done with school, but then I became a youth pastor, and I was doing that both of them at the same time. I had an opportunity to do a 2-year youth ministry institute program through the state of Florida. And I decided that, like, in order to be the best youth minister I can and to figure out like what I wanted to do, my first year I did it. So I did the youth ministry institute. I was going to school full time, and I was working as a youth pastor. My second year, that was way too much. I couldn't handle it. So I stopped doing school, did the Youth Ministry Institute and youth pastoring. And then when I graduated from YMI, I went back to UCF. They got rid of the degree that I was in. They no longer had general business. They only had specified business classes. So it was shorter for me to switch to my minor, which was psychology, and graduate with my minor, with my psychology degree, than it was to switch to a different business degree and finish that. So that was the long story of my like 8 years in undergrad.
I'm a psychology minor, so.
Oh, nice.
8 years
I
in
love
undergrad.
psychology.
That's a lot. Wow.
Well, yeah, and you know that's like taking my gaps and all that stuff too.
Right.
You know, I spent a year in a wheelchair with no school. I spent a year doing the Youth Ministry Institute, nothing else. I spent probably a total of a year like not taking as many classes full time, because there's a lot of identity crisis that happened after leaving UF and figuring out that I had to really reevaluate my entire life. But eventually, you know, God and my family rolled me back in.
So what are fun or interesting facts about yourself? And I can tell there's a lot.
What are the fun or interesting? Oh, okay. Fun or interesting facts about myself. Okay, so here we can play 2 truths and a lie, and you guys can go ahead and just throw like in the chat what number you think the lie is. So I'm gonna give you 3. I have done the world's tallest bungee jump. I have gone skydiving over 10 times. I have been backstage at a Taylor Swift concert and met and hugged Taylor Swift.
So we're guessing the lie.
Guessing the lie.
Honestly, I can't believe those are real. Whoa.
I see a lot of 2s, 2 1s. All right, is that everyone in?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so 2 is the lie. I want to go skydiving so bad, but I weigh too much. You have to be under 220 pounds to do tandem skydiving. And so there's a good chance I never will. I could take the risk and do the class to just do it myself for the first time, but I might wait till I'm like,
I do not like heights. I'm like now in a condo on the 8th floor, and I won't go to the edge of my balcony. So yeah. Just hearing about skydiving gives me like secondhand anxiety. I'm so glad for you, but like if you ever tell me about it, I'll just be like clutching my heart.
So I actually am also afraid of heights. Which is why I did the world's tallest bungee jump, which, by the way, is in Blue Cross Ridge, South Africa. It's off of a bridge that goes over the Blue Cross Ridge, and it's 952 meters up from the top of the bridge down. And I have a DVD video of it, Paige, so you can watch me do bungee jump. We could all force you to do that and just sit in there.
Okay, if there ever comes a day where you need to torture me, exactly, do that. Yeah.
I'll tell you, I am no longer afraid of heights when my legs are tied to a bungee cord. Very specific, but very helpful. So there you go. So here's some like my highlight reel, if you want to talk about it, Daniel. I have done the world's tallest bungee jump in Blue Cross Ridge. I won a gold medal in the Junior Olympics for baseball when I was 12 years old in Amsterdam, playing for People to People. I have won a national championship in collegiate football with the University of Florida. I set a personal record on the squat last year of 555 pounds, which I'll never do again, so don't ask. I can do almost a full split, impressively close to a full split. My record for walking on a handstand is 1.5 minutes, which I probably also won't do now that I'm 30 anymore. I get that you're a 3 now. Oh, yeah, amen. I spent my entire last summer living in Johannesburg, South Africa, working for a church there as a part of my schooling. Let's see, what else can I say? I'm sure there's a lot of other things, but That's all I had for now. But my friends and my family always tell me like the stories that I say, people will never believe them because it's like a lot of crazy stuff has happened to me in life, but it's just like normal for me. Like the fact that I got like Tim Tebow was given backstage passes to a Taylor Swift concert in Gainesville one time. And I was like hanging out and he's like, "Hey, do you like Taylor Swift?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, you want to go backstage with me?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." It's like we all went backstage like after winning that championship. She was there. She like came back, hugged all of us, talked for a little bit. It was like, to me, it's like, yeah, it just happens, I guess. I like don't think about it. But yeah. So those are some of my quick highlights, I guess I can say. If I think do anything else, I'll let you know.
That's all very fascinating.
Yeah, there you go. I've also had a lot of surgeries. So I've had 4 throat surgeries because I had really bad acid reflux. And I didn't realize that was what was happening. But food used to get stuck in my throat sometimes, and I'd have to like actually like throw it up because it was below my windpipe, but it wouldn't go down. And then I found out that a part of my throat was 1/10 the size it was supposed to be from scar tissue damage. And so I had to like completely change my diet, which is why I don't eat tomatoes anymore or tomato like paste products and things or like super spicy food, even though I loved spicy food for most of my life. And now I don't have any issues with it, but I had to have 4 surgeries to expand that part of my throat. And then of course I had my ankle surgery, which put me in a wheelchair for a year. And yeah, crazy.
So does no tomatoes mean no pizza for you?
I can eat pizza, but like if I'm going to eat like pizza with tomato paste, it's like the only acidic thing I'll eat that day. Like I'll plan it out. But I normally eat pretty healthy anyways. I like to like make things because I'm a big dude. And if I don't watch what I eat, I get way too big. So like I'm trying to eat more like salads and things. Like being 30 is no fun.
Well, that brings up a question that I think Sophia sent in, which was, what food do you want to see at community nights?
That's so true.
Yeah.
I've thought so much about this, and I was like, I've never had a community night, so it's like really hard to answer this question. I realized, but it's like I know that some people like don't eat meat, so it's like I love meat dishes, so I'm like, oh, I want to make like huge, like let's just like buy a pig and we're gonna slow roast it all day and like do like I spent time in Cuba too. I spent a week in Cuba. I've been to like 24 countries. By the way, it's another interesting fact, I guess. But I spent a week in Cuba, and twice while we were there, we slow roasted a pig for an entire town that we were staying with. And I got to hang out there all night playing dominoes with people who I don't speak Spanish, so like I didn't know a word they were saying, but I do know how to play dominoes. And so we had a great time, and we were just slow roasting this pig like with a hand spit. And like there's photos on my Instagram as you stalk me, Molly. And just had like a time with that. It's like it's such a weird experience, but it's like it was just so delicious. It was like crazy. But I don't know. It's a hard thing. He's vegetarian. Who is? Oh, Cam. I'm seeing the chats finally. Yeah. But yeah, I love like really good salads. Like Caesar salad is like the only like kind of basic salad I like. Like otherwise it's like throw in as many cashews and like fruits and nuts and different like things into it. And like, I want like an artisanal salad. And so I'm always down for those too. Probably because I eat so much red meat normally. It's like a really good artisanal salad is like, hits the spot every time. Yeah. So I'm not really a big fan of pizza, but I will eat pizza since that's probably like the easiest thing for us to do normally, but we'll figure it out.
You'll like Pura Vida when it opens back up.
Yeah,
it does, which is right by Hillel, and that's like so good and very healthy. Yeah,
I will say I love Cuban food. So like, if you can just make 2 bowls of like a bowl of yuca and a bowl of plantains, like sweet plantains, I'll walk away happy. Like I'll sell like a lot of my stuff for that. But so good. I'm learning how to make my own mojo pork, but it's nowhere near as good as it should be.
Any other questions for Jess?
I would have guessed you were 28, not 30.
Amen.
Ayo.
Yeah, you can't, if I take this off, really let the hair go.
Yeah.
But okay, actually, so funny story. The first week that I was here, Nico and Christian, two of the guys who are currently living on at Wesley, they met me. We're all hung out, and then I told them that I was Paige and Lita's new boss, and they're like, "What? I thought you were 24." They thought I was like a new student or something like that, and so I was like, I accept that. I will take that any day of the week.
Paige gets that too,
dude. I just went to Versailles like last week with my I had a friend come visit me, and she was born and raised in Miami, and she was like, "You have to go to Versailles." And I was like, "Why?" And it was the best. It was so delicious. So good. And they are amazing right now with the COVID stuff, because like they had like hand sanitizer everywhere and like mask gloves, and like they're just like walking through doing all stuff. It was great. Oh, bye, Patty. But yeah, definitely a highlight for me was going to Versailles. I'm excited. I'm super excited about all the cool things that are here in Coral Gables. So if you guys have some go-to places, definitely gotta let me know. And then when school starts, if things are opening up, we'll find some places for lunch and stuff every once in a while.
Do you like ice cream? Because there's some good ice cream places.
I love ice cream. I love ice cream way more than I should love ice cream. But like, ice cream is like my jam. Like if you're like, hey, do you want cake or do you want ice cream? I will always take ice cream. I don't know what it is about it. It's like there's just something about the dairy. It's just too good.
It's cold too, and in Florida it feels good.
Oh, right. So every year for my birthday, whenever like we do celebrate with my family, like whenever it is that we end up doing it, we always do an ice cream cake for my birthday, because it's June and it's like normally a pool party, and it's like absolutely.
Ice cream cake is so good. Have you been to Chillin'? Molly's asking.
I have not. I have not been to any ice cream place here yet. I can tell you the places I've been to so far that I've lived here that are not Target, Walmart, Millman's or whatever it's called, and like places like that. I've been to Versailles, and I've been to McDonald's, and I think those are the only restaurants I've been to. And then like,
Chillin' is. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
It's really good nitrogen ice cream. It's
nitrogen.
Cool place.
I've seen videos of that on Instagram when I'm bored and scrolling through like memes and things. I'm excited to try that.
Well, Jess, are there any like last words of wisdom or something that you want to impart, or anything that you were hoping to share that didn't come up?
Man, I don't know if I have any words of wisdom, but maybe eventually you guys will get one or two out of me in the course of the next couple of years here. But no, I mean, I just wanted to, I figured instead of like just doing like a Bible study or doing some sermon, like this would be a much more like fun way to have a first kind of introduction. And for any of you who are watching this that aren't here, we miss you. Wish you could have been here. And feel free still, you can email me or Instagram or Facebook me questions if you would like to talk about anything. Definitely excited to meet all of you, UM and FIU people. So,
do you have any sermon topic or like in mind, or
do I have any sermon topics in mind?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, what? So you never give a pastor just free reign. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll preach all day on anything. So, well, we're planning on having a meeting with the interns and with people to like try to talk about what maybe you all would like to hear. And I'm I have ideas. Like I always want to be preaching like on identity, like things about, Jesus and how to see ourselves and how to kind of live in and out of that. I like going through books of the Bible. I like topics. So it's really more, I think the most effective sermon is one that speaks to what the people you're talking to need and want, what it is the Holy Spirit like really wants to say to them. And so I could preach on pretty much anything. I have my topics that I love, but I'm excited to try to, work with you all to see what it is you guys would like to talk about. And honestly, one of my favorite things that I'll probably end up doing at least once a year is I like to do hot takes, which is just like at some point during the semester, you guys all just submit questions about like literally anything about the Bible. It can be about any part of the Bible. It can be about any like social justice cause, whatever it is. And just the sermon is literally just going to be me like answering those as best I can, with a little bit of pre-planning, obviously, like taking the questions. But sometimes I think those can be the places where God does the most work. So I'm excited about that as an opportunity too. If you have ideas, Molly, feel free. Let them rain.
Well, cool. So glad that y'all chose to be here with us. And I know we're so excited for what the fall and what the future in general hold. Obviously, we're in a strange time, so we're going to have to think creatively. But I am very excited that Jess is the person kind of guiding our ship as we figure out how to do that. Obviously, with important input and ideas from our incredible student leaders, but
Absolutely.
I'm excited to have Jess on board.
Yeah. And feel free, guys, like if you want, you can add me on Instagram. I think my email, but if you want my phone number, I'll just put it in here. 321-288-4815. Feel free. You guys can talk to me. You can text me. Things come up. You know, we definitely want to be a resource and be someone that is there for you. So, anyway, I typed my number in wrong. Did I? 321-288-4815. How did I get 54? Okay, take off that last 4.
I was like, I don't think that's a phone number, but okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it only took me 2 tries. This is the story of my life. I'm not a good speller, by the way, or a typer. I use one finger. So imagine writing 25-page final papers like this. It was good. Yeah. Well, thank you, Paige. I appreciate you putting all this together. And Gianna and Molly and Daniel and Patty for a little while. It was really nice to get to see your faces.
Okay, gang. I'm going to stop recording.